most people know this story, but we're going to take a deep dive into it. And I'm going to start off with in Exodus, if you have your Bibles and you want to open up. But Exodus 3:6, we start with when Moses first God appears to Moses first. But Moses said to God, I missed 3:6, my bad. But that's next. We missed 3:6. But 3:6 was when God first appeared to Moses, and Moses hid in fear. He was fearful of just being in the presence of God. And he hid his face and was afraid to do what God asked him to do. That with God, he was just fearful in his presence. And with fear, we usually tend to give excuses of what God has asked us to do. So God asked Moses to go to Egypt, and Moses lists off a bunch of excuses. The first one being Exodus 3:11, where Moses says, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" So the first thing was God asked Moses, "I want you to do this." And Moses lets his fear control him, and he starts making excuses. First, he's like, "Who am I to do this? Who am I that I failed the first time doing this? I already tried to save my people. I ended up killing somebody, and even the Jews tried to throw me out of Egypt. They scared me out. Who am I but a failure to go and do this? And who am I that I might even accomplish this task?" So right off the bat, he's giving us excuse. He's giving excuses. Then next slide, 3:13, he goes again, and if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, "The God of your fathers has sent me to you," and they ask me, "What is his name? What shall I say to them?" And this is Moses basically saying, when he asked the question, "What is his name?" What he is saying there is, when the people of Israel ask me, "What is his name?" They're asking Moses, "Who is God? What is God? What could he do for us? Who is this person that has sent you? Who is this God?" Because at the time in Egypt, the Jews had been in Egypt for so long that they were praising the Egyptian gods. They had hundreds of gods that they were praising. So who is this Yahweh that has sent you? Exodus 4:11, so next slide. Then Moses answered, "But behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they will say, 'The Lord did not appear to you.'" Again, continuing on with the excuses. This is excuse number 3 now that God keeps telling him, "I want you to go and do this." And Moses is just not listening. He's not wanting to do this. And I am not capable of talking to these people, or not speaking is what he's getting at. They will not believe me because I'm not believable. I've been out of Egypt for 20, 40 years now. I'm disconnected from this culture, and I don't know what to say to them. They won't believe me because I'm not one of them anymore. Next slide. Again, more excuses. "Oh, my Lord, I am not eloquent either in the past or since you have spoken to your servants, but I am slow of speech and tongue." He says he's not able to do this. He's not a speaker. He's not a message giver. He is not somebody that will stand up here and speak. Last slide, or next slide. Oops. Not the last one, not yet. And now Moses is out of excuses. He has come up with every which way to get out of this, and there's no more room to escape. And he says, "Lord, just send somebody else." He has run out of excuses, and he's taking his mask off, something that we've gone over. He's saying, "I'm afraid." He's not making up excuses anymore. He's just admitting to his fear. He's taking his mask off, and he's saying, I don't want to do this because I am afraid to do this. And we look back, and God has the same response to every single one of those excuses we went over. And it is, if we look back, every time Moses gave an excuse, God said this in short term: I am God. So every time, even us, ourselves, when we go, I'm not strong enough, I'm not physically capable, I'm too old or too young to do this task, I'm not a speaker, God has the same response for every excuse that you give him. I am God. It's not about you, it's about me. When Moses says, doesn't matter, when Moses says, who am I to go? God says, it doesn't matter who you are. I am God. When he says, what should I tell them your name is? God says, I am God, the God of their fathers before them. I am unchanging. When Moses asks, they won't listen to me. They won't, and God says, they won't listen to you, but they will listen to me because I am God. Every time Moses gives an excuse, every time we give an excuse to go and do something that he has called us to do because of fear, the answer is the same. His response is always the same. I am God. It doesn't matter what you're afraid of because I am stronger than that. I am bigger than that. Because your fear isn't more important than what God has called you to do. Doesn't matter if you're not physically capable, mentally capable, or if there's something bothering you. God's plan is bigger than what your fear is controlling. Fear is nothing when it comes to God because we just have to trust and focus on him. Ben, next slide. Isaiah 41:10, the verse from the video, explains this. Fear not, for I am God with you. Do not be dismayed. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. So when God gives that response, I am God, he's also saying, I am always with you. When every time Moses was saying, I was afraid, I can't do this, I'm God. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. There's nothing to be afraid of because I will be standing right there. There is nothing to run from because I'm going to be there with you. So if we can face our fear because God's with us, if we can muster up this strength to defeat fear and face our fears and conquer these tasks, why do we still wait? Why do we wait until there's no fear left? Why do we wait until God completely removes the fear from the situation? It's like in the movies when the hero armors up and he's ready to go and fight this enemy and he's got no fear. He's not even afraid of death itself. Why do we wait for that moment? Because life isn't a movie. This is the real thing. It's happening now. And I can tell you now, when Moses left to go to Egypt, he still had fear. He was still afraid to go to Egypt. And we wait for this fear to go completely away when one of the biggest leaders of the Jewish people back in the day, who we still talk about to this day, was still afraid when he went to Egypt. He was still afraid to go. But what did he do? He still went. And what happened because of this? When we go out on our faith in God, when we take our eyes off the fear, when we don't get tunnel visioned on the fear, when we kind of back off and focus on God and put our faith in him, we're going to still have fear. We are still going to be afraid. The fear is not going to disappear. It's not just going to go away. But when we focus on God, we don't see the fear. We see him in the situation. Like standing up here giving a message, you don't see the fear around you. You see what God has laid out for you over this whole process. And it's focusing on him is how we can go through this task. Like Moses, he still had fear, but he focused on what God had laid out for him, and he went to Egypt, and he came out in Hebrews, next slide, Ben. Hebrews 11:27. By faith he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured at seeing him who is invisible. He left Egypt not afraid. He went into Egypt afraid, still, but left not afraid. Because even though he was afraid to do the task, he still went out and did it through faith in fear. And we're not held down by fear when God has a plan. If you trust that plan and go out on faith in that plan, the plan will go through and things will happen. Like Moses. Moses was afraid. He still went and he still followed in faith and followed God's plan. And all of the people of Egypt he led everybody out of Egypt, and he did so many more things. What would that look like if we could do that? In our community, in our lives, if we just would not wait for the fear to go away, but instead trust in God, put our faith in him, focus on him through the fear, not without the fear, through the fear, and do what he has called us to do. How could we change our community? How could we be light to our community? How could we change things because we didn't wait for our fear to go away. We didn't wait for our movie moment to happen, but we just did. We just followed. We didn't wait until there was nothing to be afraid of, because there's always going to be something to be afraid of. What could our obedience show to others too? Whether it's somebody in this church or somebody out there, you do something that's scary, people are going to notice that. You face your fears, that's a sign to this community, to this region, to everything. What could it show to others out there what God and Jesus gives us freedom in? If it gives us freedom if we go out there and face our fears, we find freedom in Jesus. What does that show to other people? How do you do that? How did you accomplish that when you were scared? I found freedom in Jesus. I was able to face my task ahead of me because I went through my fear because Jesus gives me freedom. So there's two ways you can go today. You can either sit in your fear, be held down by it, not get anything done, be consumed by it, or you can surrender that fear to God, find freedom in it, be set free, be able to go through and change your community, change lives out there because they see that you're able to accomplish what God's plan for you is, not be held down by fear. Ben, last slide. So some questions. What is God calling you or us as a church to do? Are you waiting or holding back because of fear? Are you waiting for that movie moment? Are you waiting for God to just get rid of your fear, or are you going to go out there and do something about it? Are you willing and ready to surrender your fear and trust God to help you do what he has called you to do? Are you going to surrender and be set free, or get held down and consumed by fear? Would you pray with me? Dear God, I just hope that today what I was able to say was able to reach those that needed to hear it, and that our time after service is met with fellowship and greetings and just building this church up, that we have built a community and are trying to build more, and that we would go out there this week and fight through our fears. Give them to you, surrender them to you, and go through our fears so that we can change this community more and be a light to this community for you.